Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today at RIT Podcast. This is Isaiah Diesel, joined with my partner in crime. And how are you doing today? How's the little Sheila?
All good. Yeah, both girls are fine. Busy day, lots of work. Went to view a car to buy and literally just got in the door. So crazy day.
And so, Adam, you and I, we've interviewed a very popular author. We have interviewed, who else? An Olympian. Who else have you interviewed? Oh, that comedian. That's very interesting documentary about him. I got to tell you, we've interviewed about 70 people. This is by far, I think, going to be the most interesting episode. A couple months ago, I saw a Vice, a quick documentary on Vice, and it's literally such a crazy story that if you were to tell me this story, I would instantly call BS on it because it's too unbelievable. It's like there's no way this actually happened, but apparently it did happen. And we're joined today by Brains. Is that right? Brains, Brian.
Yeah, Brains McLeod is the artist name, but you can call me Gavin or wherever he feels good.
Brains is good. Brains is good. I like it.
A lot of people still call me Brains. There's still, believe it or not, people I know in the industry who that's the only thing they know of me. So every now and then I'll kind of run into people and they'll be like Brains, and then they'll be like, wait a minute, wait, like you're not who you are. That's kind of like crazy. But
we're gonna get to that in a second. But first of all, where are you calling out of?
Plymouth, the opposite end of the country.
Calling out of. I'm talking about our guest.
All right. I'm in London.
Okay, you're in London, and by the way, how long have you been living there, real quick?
I've been in London since I moved down here for the Silibil and Brains thing. So it's got to be 20 years now.
Oh, so you never left? Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah, well, we're gonna get to that in a second. But before we do, we're just gonna ask you some real quick questions. We call it friendly fire, so it's gonna be like a lightning round, and try to answer as quickly as possible. Okay.
Cool.
All right. Are you a dog or cat guy?
Dog.
Adam.
Fish and chips or pizza?
Fish and chips, although I love pizza.
Top 3 rappers of all time.
Eminem. It's very hard. Method Man. No, you know what? Eminem, Pac, and Biggie, just for their impact.
Thank you. You're about to lose me with Method Man, but he's good.
Meth never really had the impact of their albums, but yeah, I love his voice.
Actually, when this head used to support braids, I had a Wu-Tang Clan shaved in the back of my head. It was pretty when I was like in high school. But all right, Adam.
Favorite female vocalist?
Oh, this is an interesting one because I love female vocalist is my favorite thing, and it's such a rich world. So right now, currently, is my girlfriend Carrie Ann.
Good answer.
I think if you go out to Spotify and check out her song "Caught in the Dark," you'll hear the most beautiful, ethereal vocals that you ever imagined on a track. She's worked with Imogen Heap, and I love Imogen Heap, and Agnes Obel. Those are my top 3 right now. So, but I would say Carrie Ann is killing it right now.
Okay, all right. Maybe we'll give away a few copies of her album from this as well. But okay, if you had to own any giant feline, which one would it be?
Any giant feline?
Mm-hmm.
Any giant cat? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Jaguar, cheetah, lion. They do it in Dubai.
I wouldn't have a cheetah because they've just run away. It'd be a nightmare. Imagine your dog gets out the yard. It's hard enough. Yeah. Cheetah, it's gone. I probably wouldn't ever, but for the sake of the question, I would say a tiger, a Bengal tiger.
Oh, nice. Gray?
I'm all out, mate. That's me.
Okay, then this is the last one. If you were going to get killed by any fictional bad guy from any horror movie, who would it be? Who would you want to go down at the hands of?
Probably Kruger. I'd like a run in with Kruger.
Yeah, it's the prestige. Okay, so all right, so this is how we're going to do this. So far, your story has you've written a book, you have there's been a small documentary, a bigger documentary, and you've done a lot of interviews. So there's probably nothing that that we could talk about right here, just from your actual story, that's like not going to be been covered multiple times. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to get a little bit deeper about some of the things, and maybe some of the lessons behind your story. Okay, so in order to do that, what we're going to do is I'm going to start off and I'm going to give a 2 to 3 minute summary of what I've seen, and then we're going to let you go for about 5 minutes on filling in some of the biggest details, and then we're going to get to some of the smaller things that we have a lot of questions to ask you over, right? So you ready for that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to preface this by saying I used to date a girl from South Africa, which is I guess where you're born, and she introduced me to this documentary called Searching for Sugar Man, and it's about this guy who makes like a record, and then he like just disappears. He doesn't, no one can find him. There's like all this mythology behind him, and then he just goes back and lives a normal life. But this record winds up resonating with a lot of the people in South Africa, and even winds up contributing to like the ending of the apartheid, like giving something anthem for this movement that's rising against the racism. Well, when I saw that, there's literally a part in there where a journalist says, this would seem like if he created this story, it would be the most unbelievable, unrealistic, that no one would even want to buy, because it's just that out there. And so those two stories, that one and this one, I got to tell you, if you presented either of these to me, I would call BS, and I'd be like, I don't even want to listen to that story. But I'm gonna try to give it in a nutshell very quickly. Okay, so you and your buddy are living in Scotland, and you guys are very talented, extremely talented. This whole story aside, the music is just wow. But you guys go down to London to audition. You get totally rejected, totally devastated, and you go back and you said, we're going to fake like we're from California, right? So you guys cut some new music, pretend that you're American, you're Californian, you're speaking with an accent. You make this elaborate backstory, somehow are able to come down and convince everybody of this, and get a record deal, wind up living an extremely crazy lifestyle for about 2 years, and then it all came crashing down. Is that kind of like a general idea of what happened?
Yeah, in a nutshell, yeah.
Okay, so if you can give us a 5-minute version yourself, and then we're going to get into asking you some of these questions.
Yeah, I'll give you a bigger nutshell.
Okay.
It's interesting what you say about like kind of stories that are unbelievable. As a writer, I like look at a lot of stories out there, and I write some stories and TV stuff and screenplays and stuff. And every time I write stories, people always go, dude, it's unrealistic. There's no way this could happen. And then I just go and show them the real story or the documentary or an article about it. And people are constantly blown away by, there's nothing more crazy and shocking than real life. Mm-hmm. It's just that everyone is so programmed by the norms that they just don't see the outside the box. But in a capitalist world, people are trying to make it, and people are doing the extremes to make it. With us, my dad grew up, when I was growing up, my dad broke his back building stadiums, and wow. and I always looked at it like he's killing himself for us. And I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to work a hideous job I hate. And I had done all these hideous jobs, and it took time for me to keep getting beat up, keep being a creative person, working all these bad jobs that are killing my soul and spirit. So I decided, no, I love this. I'm completely in love with this. And I had gone from being completely in love with football. At school, I was kind of jumped by kids on the day that I was very close to signing a professional football contract, and I got jumped and beaten into a coma, and I had to kind of go. I'd lost football. So when I kind of found music. My uncle put headphones on when I was in the hospital, and I would hear all these rappers, Pac, Biggie, Wu-Tang Clan, a lot of these amazing rappers. And so when I came out of it years on, music was just in me. I would just rhyme all the time without even trying. It would just be there. And so when I met Bill, we just got on like crazy, and rap was a thing that was like kind of this bond between us. We obviously liked all the same things. We were skateboarders. We were into all the same things, but the rap was a deeper way of communicating. There was a deepness there to the way we kind of spoke to each other that no one could kind of understand, almost like our own language. So when we came down to London, we were so good, like. And the thing between us is that we were so scared that we weren't good that we could never accept we were good. So we would try harder. We'd work. We'd play this game Porcupine. We'd rhyme at each other, battle each other every day, every minute. Anywhere we went, we would just constantly going at each other in a funny way. So when we came down to the audition, the thing that people don't understand is that there was a block that went round, a queue that went round the block twice. So you can imagine how of Leicester Square, the entirety of Leicester Square. So that is huge. Covent Garden and Leicester Square. This queue was going round the block twice. So we came out of the tube and we saw that. We look at the end of the queue and it's like, we're never getting in. There's only a limited amount of time that they have the doors open for an open audition for a major label. So we just basically hopped in and we started battle rapping people for their spot. So we went from one part of the queue right down to the front, battle rapping. We must have beat each about 80 people.
What?
Before people were just starting to get out of the way and let us go through.
Oh my God.
By the time we got to like a few people from the front, people were just like, well, people were cheering for us and like, Jesus Christ, like, dude, these guys, and everyone was going, these guys are the real deal. These guys are the real deal. When everyone else was just kind of like dressed like it was like, are you the next Eminem was the name of the audition. And everyone else was just kind of like, it was like kind of a fancy dress, so there was a lot of really good rappers who were there, but the majority was kind of fancy dress time, peroxide hair, just kind of wannabes, So we just annihilated everyone. And then when we got in, we were so confident, we were so like on a high, and forgotten all the kind of identity stuff that goes along with rap and hip hop, forgot all that. We were just having a great time. And so we went into the room, we saw the A&Rs, and we put our track on. The guy puts our track on. It comes on in the middle of the beat. We're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So we're off to a bad start straight away. We've been hijacked straight away. So we're like, and then our confidence now is getting crushed, because we're like, Jesus, like what's going on? It's all gone wrong. And we started to rap. As soon as we realized that it didn't matter how good, because we did one of those songs where we put all of our best punchlines up front, stuff that like would just make everyone laugh, and there was nothing from them. And then 20 seconds in, the girl who was with the A&R, Carol, her face started to crack up, and I was, it's when someone's laughing, but you haven't told a joke, and so you're kind of like, yeah, what's going on here? And then, yeah, and they both started laughing, and the guy in the center was just like, all right, cut it. And he was just kind of like, what is this? And we were like, what do you mean? We're like a hardcore rap group. Like, what's going on? And he was like, you're Scottish. And we were just like, yeah, like what's the big deal? He's like, have you never seen MTV? Like Scotland is See You Jimmy Hats, it's Willie the Groundskeeper, it's men in kilts showing their bare arse. It's not rap, look at MTV. And so they just kind of annihilated our souls at that point. And I mean, we went out, and I was like nearly in tears. It was soul destroying. And we went for a second opinion, and we had spoke to this guy who we went for a second opinion. We kind of broke into his company, and we kind of like managed to kind of blag our way in. And he sat down. Now, this was an underground guy. This guy was signing English rappers. He was an underground guy. He owned Hip Hop Connection, was the biggest European hip hop magazine. And he sat down, and he actually, we said, look, we've came 13 hours on a bus. We're not leaving until you give us a chance. And he played our songs. He didn't listen to his rap. He just played the songs. And the beats would come on. He would be like, oh, man, yeah. Oh, yeah. And we're like, oh, finally. And as soon as we start rapping, he's like, next track. And then again, next track. And then he took the track out, CD out, threw it across the table. He was like, what do you want from me? I'm like, Jesus. He was like, listen, don't make me say it. And I was like, say what? He's like, you're Scottish. You sound like the rapping Proclaimers.
Oh
And we were
God.
like, whoa.
Oh God.
And that was the thing that killed us. So for me, it was a case when we went back, Bill and I didn't speak for ages, but that was in the time that we didn't speak, I was suffering from a lot of like kind of stuff like depression and kind of not understanding what to do. I was taking meds because I wasn't able to sleep. I've had like night terror since I was a kid, and it was just hell. I was like insomniac, and all I could do was sit and make beats all day long. I got kicked out of uni, so then I didn't have the kind of the funds then to pay the rent and everything. Everything just went downhill so quick. And then I saw a film called Secret of My Success, which I already had seen. But it came on TV when I'd taken a really kind of pretty hardcore benzodiazepine. And so I was kind of a bit all over the place watching Secret of My Success. But then it hit me in this kind of hazy, way. It hit me like, I'm going to do what he's done. He basically kind of cons his way to the top of a company by just letting everyone else think who he is, not really by saying he's anyone, but everyone else kind of creates the story. And I just thought, wow, that's it. And in that mind state, I kind of was,
oh God.
I was out of my mind, but in that mind state, I turned on the mic and I started rapping in a really bad American accent, recorded a track, took it to a party of all my friends and played it. And everyone was just like, oh, damn, who's this? Like, Jesus Christ, is this like M's new track? And I was like, oh God, this is going to work. And then I told Bill, we decided, and that was it. And then that was the catalyst of why we kind of went on and did what we did.
But it just snowballed. It just kept getting bigger. Because I saw in the interview multiple times, you're like, oh God, like we aren't prepared to do this. Like I saw the video where they say you're going to introduce or open up for D12, and you could see the look on your face. It's total sheer. You're like, we're not prepared for this. But anyway,
yeah.
Okay, so right off the top, there's a couple of things I want to say. First of all, we have a little bit of a connection here because are you familiar with the band Korn?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so they're from my hometown, and our where I graduated high school is called the Highland Scots. So that's our mascot. So that's how he learned how to play the bagpipe was
nice.
At our high school. But okay, so there's that. One quick thing I wanna observe. If you take a look at American Idol, okay, or I guess there's probably other iterations of this, but Simon Cowell, who's from I think the UK, but he became famous for like just totally thrashing people, ripping them to shreds. And so having had that happen to you, what are your thoughts about the way that judges do things like that? Because it seems like you could give some kind of constructive criticism, but it doesn't seem like they just want to really rip people and destroy their dreams. So having experienced that, can you speak on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, in your life, you should have, I firmly believe in like coaching and, sports coaching and the relationship you build with a coach is someone who kind of like builds you up, breaks you down, and then rebuilds you. And so you should in your life be told, look, you're shit, don't do that. That's crap. Don't do that. Or like, you should be told that, but it's a great way of kind of weeding out the bad, by saying you're not good, but if it's something that you love in your soul and you're not delusional, the problem with those shows is they hang on the kind of early parts of the shows is they kind of the audition sites hang on the kind of delusional mind state of people who just want fame rather than people who want to be really good. So if you're like in any creative arts or in any sport, your real aim is to become amazing. That's your number one goal. So if someone says to you, look, you're crap, you should be going, fantastic. And in the audition we went to, if they had said, look, we don't like your diction, we don't like the way you're doing it too fast, if they had anything like that, I'd have been, Great, brilliant, cool. I'll work on that. Like, I love being told that this is what I'm not good at. That's the only way to really, truthfully learn, especially as most of the times you will understand or know that you've got a problem with someone. So when someone says it, it hits home, and then you try to change it, or you work on it. But the idea of just kind of, when you see someone is clearly, they're clearly not with it and they're trying to sing, and you're kind of just slamming them, that's horrible. That's just playing for ratings.
And just one observation too, because I think in the documentary you use the word heartbroken. So as deceptive and dishonest as it is what you guys did, after watching some of the interviews, I'm like, dude, I don't blame these guys at all, man. If you treat someone who's this talented, who has, and I'm just gonna say this has nothing to do with appeasing you or trying to BS this interview, but I've listened to that stuff. It's as good as, if not slightly worse than Eminem. It's like literally at that level. So
being slightly worse than Eminem is still an amazing thing.
I know. Slight, and I mean literally slightly. Because that's amazing, because that's someone who's got hundreds of thousands backing, and we essentially did everything ourselves. So I know. He had Dre behind him, probably one of the best producers of all time. So I just want to point that out, because that's something that really stuck out to me when you used the word heartbroken, and then you said you were determined to prove everyone wrong, and you said you were hell bent on making it. So I just wanted to say that was something I pulled out from there. And Gray, go ahead. He's all yours.
Yeah, sure. Good to meet your brains, mate. I did see your documentary I've watched it twice actually. It was good. I watched it with Zion last night. Very fascinating. Very fascinating.
Yeah, it's back on the iPlayer as well right now.
Oh, is it as well? Oh, fantastic. Yeah. We picked it up on Amazon, yeah. So firstly, I think the thing that stuck out for me right from the start was the fact that after you were rejected, you went home and you worked harder, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my first question is, do you think that had you approached it from an honest angle and been more persistent, honestly, do you think you would have ever made it by doing that?
Well, the complicated thing is the use of the term honest and truth, because so in our audition, we were told something that was very important. It was like, look, you're Scottish, not look, you're not good. So we had no issue with the fact that it wasn't about our skills, and we've just beat 80 guys each. Like, we know we're great. Like, that's not it. But the bigger problem is we can't change anything then. Like, what do you do when someone says it's just your country that is not allowed to embark in this hip hop thing? It's just your nation. It's just who you are. It's inherently who you are that's not allowed to play this game. For me, I found that foul. I found that abhorrent. And I wasn't then going to play their game. Right. So for me, I could have then went away, tried for years and years and years, as a lot of rappers that I know in Scotland have, and I know in South Africa and in Australia, have tried and tried and tried and tried, working their hard as they can, made great songs, pop songs, but no one touches it. Mm-hmm. So that's them being honest with themselves. They can't work any harder. But for me, a deeper form of honesty is to know that it's not you, it's them. Okay, well then now be honest with yourself and do what you have to do to go out there and prove them wrong. So our plan was, let's get the record deal, make a big stink, prove that we're incredible showmen, and then we'll go, see, this industry is just horrifying. They're ripping people off every day. There is people who are abused daily in this industry. They sign 99% of the artists they sign never get released. It's a hideous business. It's getting a little bit better now, but it was, at the time, it was so bad. And something had to change. And we were I was obsessed with the idea of go down and prove them wrong, you know? And anything that happens, and I found that as a weird form of honesty, because it felt like I'm being so honest with myself that I know that I can't change this. But if I did change this, knowing that this is the reason, then it could work out. But that is a dangerous game to play, because essentially you're dealing with your identity, you're dealing with your mental state,
Right.
and you're dealing with kind of things that you probably at a certain point can't control.
Yeah.
And that's the
and so in the Vice documentary, I was so touched. I mean, I'm getting chills just thinking about this, because when it says, like you were talking about, it's really hard to fake something you're like 100% not. And you're like, the reason why we could have done this for so many years, you said because we were those guys, and there was like so much passion in your voice when I caught that. And so I actually like fault you 0% for this, because something else I want to talk about real quick, because I told you this ex-girl who I was dating was from South Africa. But as we know, probably during the time you're growing up there was an apartheid system. So there is lots of racism and lots of discrimination. And then you go from that to being like the in the ruling class, and then you go to a place like Scotland, which is, I guess, where you are, your ethnicity is from. And so now you're treated with racism from a different side. And of course, there's a long history with England, with Earl Grey's ancestors. So what do you think about that, experiencing both sides of the racism element?
Yeah, it was a really strange time to be alive. I mean, South Africa is the only real revolution I've ever seen happen there, you know, and I saw that. And I saw people of different colors and cultures coming together to overthrow a kind of the last of the Nazi Reich. That's what happened in South Africa. That's how far back it went. And it was, you know, there was a history of that is fascinating. The fact that, you know, the end of the World War II, there was a deal made that gave the kind of the Boer, it gave them Africa and parts of Africa. So that's why they kind of, that the apartheid was allowed to grow for so long. Right. But coming out of South Africa, which was to me like just an incredible place to grow up and be a part of and see change happen before my eyes, coming out of somewhere that's taught me to believe in hope and believe in change, landing in a hellhole of North Motherwell, which looked like a kind of a post-apocalyptic Bosnian like horror show, you know, looked like a war had happened. I couldn't understand. You know, you're walking in the streets and there's glass everywhere, like everyone's just looks horrified. You know, just areas in Scotland that are completely strangled by the apartheid of the UK government. Right. So it was and I got beat up every day for being different, you know, for standing out, for looking different. So for me, it was like that and I was seeing, you know, like I saw what Thatcher had done to the steelworks, and I saw like, you know, people were just broken people. So I'd come from one country that had a hellish thing happen, but then was fighting to make change. And I landed in a country that still had its kind of like the grip of the kind of the leaders kind of with their hands around the throats. So it taught me kind of in being different and getting beat up, it taught me not to be different. It taught me to stay inside, insular, play your part, you know, and that's just not who I ever was. So for me, eventually, all the trauma and everything I'd gone through, becoming Brains McLeod was something, it was so rewarding and kind of, it allowed me actually to be who I really was, because who I really was a performer, an entertainer. I just want to make people laugh. I want to make people entertain. From the days of like 3 years old doing karate, I just want to impress my parents. Playing football, I just want to make everyone cheer. And so when you go inside yourself, it's a horrible way to be kind of imprisoned, you know, like mentally imprisoned. So becoming Brains was just a way of giving myself a character that I could go on stage and be like, hey, you know, I'm just going to be me now. And there's no rules for these 30 minutes that I'm on stage, or for this time, you know, playing Brains, this character. The reason it was so seductive and addictive was because I could actually just be me, unadulterated, no rules, you know. And I think if we were all in that situation of like, just go and do exactly what you want and be who you really want to be. We never actually hurt anyone. We never really we never did anything that anyone that would consider bad, you know. Like we didn't do anything bad. We just created a group, and we went around and we entertained the life out of people every time. That's why people loved us. That's why no one wanted to question, but wait a minute, there's some inaccuracies here in where you're from, you know. And people would constantly kind of catch us out, like, oh, I'm from Cali, I'm from I heard you guys, there was a person one time, we were just about to sign the deal, and there was someone in Sony's office, this girl, Ali, who was basically saying that she was from Huntington Beach. And a part of our story was that we kind of like left Hemet and slept on Huntington Beach. And then we kind of started from there, and we got a job in a skate store. And she was like, oh, no way, I work in a skate store. And then I literally said a skate store that she worked in, because I knew that.
Oh my God.
And it was just like, oh no. So moments like that where you just,
wow.
The lie just bang hits you in the face constantly.
Yeah. Would you say that was of all the moments that you nearly got caught? Do you think that was probably the worst, or was there?
No, that wasn't even up there. That was just fun being able to, like, what we eventually did was our improvisational skills just grew to be, you know, like when you think of fast twitch thinking, where you're kind of like something happens and you're like, I need an answer. When you're battle rapping, it trains, battle rapping and freestyle trains the brain to be very quick, answer. Because you're thinking one side, like you're thinking of, this is the problem that's gonna come. And this side's going, answer. So we got so quick. One of us, we'd play these roles where one of us would talk and the other would just listen. So one of us is telling the story, like, yeah, you know, grew up best friends with M, you know, went and lived in Detroit for a while, like telling this bogus story, just having fun. Oh my God. You know, and the other one's listening, going, "Oh God, what is he doing? What is he doing?" Like this person doesn't believe it, and like waiting for the person to speak up, and then that person's got a plan of like counteracting that person. So, in that situation, when I said that, you know, she said, "No way, I worked at Slam," like, "No way," you know, and then Bill was like, "Yeah, but were you there?" And then Bill picked a time, and she was like, "Yeah, I was there then." She's like, "We weren't." And that was it. Because he asked a question that no matter how she answers, we've got a way out. If she says, "No, I wasn't there then," we go, "Oh, we were there then." And she says, "No, I was there then," like, we weren't there then. So boom, way out.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so a couple of things. One, so I'm from California. I'm from Bakersfield, which is, I guess you said you've never been there, but it's 2 hours from LA. And actually it's funny, because my ex-girlfriend lives in Hemet now, so we were like totally in love. But anyway, so it's funny because I could actually hear in the interviews and stuff, I could actually hear the faking of the accent, and especially in the music, I could totally hear it. So that is amazing. But I gotta say something, that stress would totally eat me up on a daily basis, because you were talking about sometimes where like the record company was like, "Hey, come in, we gotta have a meeting," and you're like, "Oh God, did they figure me out?" So that stress, that anxiety would totally weigh down on me. And we've all been in situations where, like, let's say you owe someone money and you don't have the money to pay them, and you're like just kind of around them, and you're just kind of just waiting for them to mention that, you know. I mean, I had a job situation here with my visa, and it was like weeks and weeks going on, and my boss just would sometimes ask about it and sometimes not. So I was always like so nervous around her, whether or not she was going to mention it. And some days, you know, it wouldn't be anything. So can you speak?
It was stressful to watch, man.
Yeah, about the stress, the anxiety, like on a daily basis.
Yeah, and the thing is like every day, when you're a performer and say you want to be in a show, like a stage show, every you do 2 shows a day. Sometimes they change the script. If you're in a movie, if you're making movies, the screenwriter, someone on set sometimes changes lines, and it's quite stressful every second minute of doing these things, because they're big things. Anything that is a big idea, a big plan, is always going to be stressful. So in some way, we were kind of a little bit used to blagging and building stress and holding anxiety and then exploding with a kind of release. Our good thing was that we always had to release. Let's go. The next morning we're in the studio, bang, like just let it all out. And like that was the kind of cycle that we used to kind of distribute the unrest and the anxiety, but it kept adding up and adding up and adding up. So there's times where not just in almost getting blown out the water, because we almost got blown out the water multiple times. I remember being in a bar. We were with a guy who was our product line manager, Steve Warby, and a bunch of my best friends. I didn't know this, but they were in London.
Oh my God!
They were in London for a skate competition, and we basically are going down the escalator in kind of Leicester Square, going down the escalator, and a group of 4 or 5 of them are coming up the escalator. So luckily Bill had completely changed his hair, and he had like blonde hair and longish. So him turned back to them. They couldn't really see him, but I was right in direct line with them. So I just did the Carlitos Way thing. I just hit the deck. I lay down on the escalator, just pretended I was like having a laugh. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna chill out here, bro. You know, like, and Steve was just like, all right, that's, you know, yeah, that's weird. And then waited for them to go by. And things like that. I remember a girl that I dated we were in a bar in Oxford Street, and this is how small the world is. I dated this girl for a while. Bill knew her really well as well. She actually worked with Bill. And where I'm in this bar, and it's everyone from the industry is kind of there, because it's Jamelia's manager's kind of birthday party. So so I go to the bar and I look across, and there she is, and she's like, hey, and I can see her mouth and Gav. You know, and I'm just like, and again, I just hit the deck and I crawled around the pub on my hands and knees to get into the toilet so I could text Billy. I end up in the girls' toilet, and I'm like, Jesus, and I'm hiding. I'm texting Bill like, we've got to go out of here. Katie,
oh my God!
So daily, these things would kind of build up and build up and build up, but then we'd kind of find magical ways out of them. We'd just kind of improvise, and then we would like explode with laughter when we're leaving. You know, we'd be like, wow, how did we not get caught now? Like, this is crazy. And it kept happening right up to the Eminem D12 thing, which that was the big one. That was the kind of that one. And the thing with our passports.
If you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old or 20-year-old self before you're getting ready to do this, what would be your advice from the lessons that you've learned over the last 20 years?
That's a very philosophical question. And if you know anything about kind of the grandfather paradox or anything like that, anything you could say could make it worse. I mean, if I went back and grabbed myself and was like, oh, do this and do this, and, you know, you'd be like, oh, you know, it would make it all. I don't think I would. I would want my younger self to just have less self-doubt. I did a lot of things, and a lot of things were impulsive, and they were listening to the gut, but I would have wanted to do that more. The times of self-doubt and the times of kind of like getting lost in trauma and kind of running away from trauma, those are all natural things, but I just wish younger that I would have faced those traumas earlier. But then in a way, what I did as Brains was facing the trauma of everything I'd gone through, but just in a very bizarre way. I can say now that, you know, at my age now, I feel like I've lived multiple lives, like and realized and learned multiple things about myself in a way that I think is quite hard in a normal life to learn. You know, like I've been put through unbelievable pressure. I've tried things that are just insane that you shouldn't do because you will definitely get into trouble. There isn't that many questions anymore, you know. So I'm kind of happy that it's turned out that way, that I could be at this age and kind of like have a kind of easily open chest breathing in life, you know, rather than, you know, have these questions of what if this and what if that. I don't have any of that. I don't have the what ifs. You know, I tried my hardest to be a professional footballer. I got there, something happened. Fair enough. I still love playing football. I haven't lost the love of it. I tried really hard to become a great producer, and then I just became it very quickly. And now I just love being a professional producer. I love being a writer. I love doing all the things I do. And when I get to a point in something, I feel like this is easy now. Then I want to do something more. I want to become a great screenwriter. So for me, it's never about making it. In the past, as a young kid, used to be like these superficial things that everyone else wants. But truly deep down, like, who am I? What do I really want? What will make me happy? Well, that would be just living a creative life every day, wake up, do something creative. And that's what I do. So it's a weird way of kind of winning, but by trying to do this other thing and then realizing more and more truths about yourself along a journey. And so all I would tell anyone young is buy in, take the journey, even if it seems kind of wrong at times. And, you know, I think obviously that can go down a different path, but I had good parents, and I only ever really wanted to impress my parents. So, you know, I was never really going to go down the roads of doing anything bad or hurting anyone. I can never do anything like that. I don't have that upbringing. So essentially, I really have always wanted to entertain people, inspire people, and just be creative with every living breath. And luckily, I'm there now.
Gray, thank you.
Yeah. Well, firstly, I want to congratulate you for what you did, because a lot of people would disagree with what you did. But I think what you guys did was right. You were treated badly, and you reacted based on that treatment. So kudos to you both, mate. Really. So, as I say, a lot will disagree with me.
Not me.
Well, and that's totally within the right to do. And I would say that I would disagree with the idea of I've got to get this job. I've got to get this job because then I'll have money to buy the things I want to have, and I want to get this car and I want to get that. And then you sit in a job and your boss, you know, craps on you and people don't like you, or anything goes wrong. You stay in a relationship too long and you do all these things. Sometimes a lot of people that the status quo is to stay here doing the things that are safe. Don't try too much. Don't go for something you really love. And then I've just seen too many people in my life get to a certain point where they kind of really wish they gave it something a go, you know, like, and so I find it like the wrong thing would be to sit and work in a call center and just take that because I did it, you know, and I saw the soul destruction of calling up someone and selling something down, you know, working marketing or working as an accountant, working as a lawyer. There's so many ways I could turn around and say, that's a bad job. That is politics. That is, no one wins in that game. You're going to hurt someone. So, it's, you know, you can't control that.
So you got rejected, you went home, you had to think about it. You thought of a way around this. You pretended to be American. You went back. They let you in. They signed you up. You were listened to effectively purely because of how you spoke. Now, how do you first part of the question is, firstly, what do you think the biggest reason that you guys didn't sell millions of records was? What was, you know, what was the straw that broke that camel's back? And also the other half of the question is, had you sold millions of records and the truth had come out, what do you think the reaction of the industry would have been then?
The reason we didn't sell records is we stopped the record coming out. At one point, once we got to, on the day that we signed, our lawyer was trying to get our passport off us for ages. And we were just ducking him. And then eventually when we came to the day of getting signed, he was like, you can't sign this deal because I don't know who you are, really. You keep writing your names, brains, and syllable down on contracts. You can't do that. You're committing fraud, you know? And we were like, come on, dude, come on. But then the girl who wanted to sign us came out into the hallway and said, what's going on? And we were like, oh, we can't sign. And she was like, nah, nonsense. I trust them, you know? And so we signed. And that whole thing until eventually he kind of confronted us at the Eminem show after the gig and said, look, I know who you are, because he's seen us on TV. Things got so big, so fast, because we went on MTV. We were so good on MTV that they offered us our own TV show, and it was like getting crazier and crazier and crazier. Everyone who would be around us saw crazy potential, and so all these things were getting chucked at us. You know, it was blowing up before it even had a chance to release the record. Like, we'd created all this without a record out there. So when our lawyer told me straight up, like, you bring that record out, because our record was due to come out on the Friday. He was like, if you bring that record out and the stuff I've seen on forums, people are talking about you one went to school with you in Scotland. If this comes out, they will sue you for the money back because they won't take the risk. They will not take the risk of the million that they've already invested in you. Do you have the money? He was like, wait, where's the money? Do you have it? Because if you don't have it, your parents will have to pay it back. You'll go to jail and your parents will pay the money back. And we were like, at that point, it was like, whoa. We was made out that he was crazy and just carried on with that tour. But I called off putting out the record at that time. And so my plan was then, coming up with a new harebrained plan was to become a punk rock band that also had hip hop in it, because punk rock, no one really cares where you're from at that point. It's not about the street, it's not about identity. We could have then phased the accent out, and we probably at that point we could have then turned around and said, that was all a kind of joke. And then once the label rebranded it as a punk rock album, they would have probably seen the light there. But there was just too much risk, and the reason that kind of fell apart is because Bill didn't believe in that. We kind of went for it, but Bill was also kind of running out of time. He'd got married, his wife was having a baby, so he was running out of time, so we never had the time to kind of execute that game plan of having the punk rock record ready to go. But people loved that. People at the label loved it. We never got the misconception of the story is that we got dropped. We never got dropped. The group, Bill and I, then blew up with each other, and we tried to kill each other, and we were kind of the pressure at that point of every single day of almost getting caught out. The pressure had built us up, and Bill having been pulled away, and real life calling him, and this kind of not real life kind of keep him here. So he developed that kind of anger to it, and so that anger was kind of pushed on me, and it was always going to blow up. And so when it blew up big. And so once it blew up, there was no way of coming back from that fight that we had. So, but that was in many ways the saving grace, because if that record did come out, the thing about how much money our company puts into, at that point it was past $1 million. If they can get their money back, they'll do it. They won't risk, they would have to see that it doesn't matter that this has happened, and people are calling them out as, they would then have to see but let's work on this. Let's work with them now. And let's kind of put this whole thing as if we meant. They wouldn't risk that. There's no chance they would have done that. It's easy now to look back. What if we just brought them in on it? Like it's too much money, too much risk. There was a part in our contract that actually said if this, and Eminem's got it in his contract as well. If at any point Eminem changed his hair from when he was really Slim Shady and his records were doing well because of that, if he changed his hair to black, he could have been sued for any amount that the record lost. So that contract, that kind of identity contract clause is in your contract anyway. So we knew that, so us getting out and the band kind of disbanding at that point, 2.5 years, we'd recorded 6 albums in that time. We had toured, we had done over 500 gigs, we had broke records and everything we were doing, but it was boiling and boiling and boiling, and then something bad might have happened, because the fury and anger that was building up between us wasn't natural, and it wasn't nice, and it was really good that we went our separate ways at that time. It's unfortunate that we had to have a horrible fight, and we had to, but we kind of are good now, and it's kind of like, it's good that it went that way, and the journey kind of then the story coming out, and it's been a nice thing. It's been a lovely thing. People find all the music. They go on Spotify and they find it, and it's weirdly got a new fan base all over the world. And I'm not in debt to a crappy label, which every big artist is. So it's quite a blessing.
So okay, a couple of things I want to point out here. First of all, major kudos to Bill for sticking with the women and having the child. Like, that's amazing. That takes such commitment and such love to do something like that. So I just have to say that.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I want to say was that he said that I guess he said this about you, that he thought that you were chasing the past, like you couldn't really get over that element. And he said that he was chasing the dream, where he says that the dream was chasing him. So is that still, are you still making music at all? Or do you have anything out, any other projects that are still going on about this?
Yeah, so that, I can understand that point of view. If you aren't really an artist, then you will develop that point of view. But for me, as the person who made every beat, who wrote every hook, who was writing the lyrics, like I all I wanted to be was an artist, a true artist. And so I was that, and I'd become it. I was making all the beats. I was taking an idea from my head and then boom, alchemy, creating it. And and Bill wasn't. So he didn't understand that relationship to that's pure love there. For me, I'm in love. That is it. So he didn't have that relationship with music and with what we were doing. So when Bill left, I did have a kind of like, oh, I'm not going to do music for a while. And it was hell. It was hellish. So I kind of rediscovered music.
Wow.
Through kind of a person I loved since I was very young. She died. And then a very best friend of mine, he died. And it was music that got me through that point. And I started making punk rock music and the music that I loved to make. And then I started a new journey of just like a lovely, beautiful music journey. And I've had great relationships, long relationships. I'm in a good relationship now. It's never really been about choosing. I wasn't choosing, music over family. I just wasn't in that place yet to think I could raise a child or I had a lot of stuff. And for me, music is a way of dealing with trauma. And I didn't want to have kids or set up a complicated life. When I had so much trauma, I was still dealing with it, and I was dealing with it with my art. And so for my decision to stay and become really become the musician I wanted to be and the writer I wanted to be, that was completely right. That was perfect for me. And Bill's decision to go when he didn't have that relationship with the art and just be a father and be a normal person, that's the perfect decision for him. So it kind of was a perfect way to go. Like the worst thing is if we might have been kind of playing these roles, but you don't want any one of us to actually be playing the role of I'm playing the role of a musician. You kind of want to be a musician, if you don't want to, you should be here. And so that was the right decision he made.
Great.
And so musically now, I don't have that. I've got records coming out, a new record coming out, and I've made 11 studio albums now, and I've written books and I'm writing screenplays, working on the motion picture. And it's kind of just like a really calm, peaceful relationship with music now, and which is great.
Great.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks for that, mate. One question I did have was, so you go into an office and you sit down and someone says to you, right, here's 70 grand, right? There you go. 70 grand, just sign this bit of paper here. What went through your mind when you walked out of that office, and what did you spend the next 2 or 3 days doing? I mean, you had £70,000 in your bank, and you're young guys in London. What did you get up to?
Well, the thing with that, the thing that you have to understand is before we got that money and before we went into Charlotte's office, and you have to remember, like, if anyone is going to go and do a deal like that where they're doing a kind of sort of merger of a business, which is a lot of these contracts are, we've got a business, you're going to give us money, as a kind of a front, a bit of an advance. And so before that meeting with Jonathan and Charlotte, we were like on the breadline. We didn't have a lot of money. We came down with £90 between us, So traveling into town was going to cost a tenner, So we had to get to certain events. We had to go and blag into certain events. We'd buy one beer, and then the rest of the night we'd be filling up that beer bottle with water, and then kind of playing that we're kind of we're a bit drunk.
Wow.
So we'd be playing those characters. But so that day we'd kind of done that a few times, and we'd caused quite a big buzz at events that we'd blagged into and made everyone know who we were. And we'd had a lot of big things happen with Island Records after us and stuff. So they knew who we were when we walked in the door that day. But before we walked in that day, we were talking about, we do not have a single cent after this meeting. After this meeting, we are walking home. We don't have a way to get home,
Wow.
So we were beyond broke. So when we sat down and Jonathan Charlotte came in, was introduced to us, we really got on with the other dude who was there, JD. He loved us. When Jonathan Charlotte came in, he's this businessman. He's this kind of like dude. He's just like, he's not kind of like like cool, like, you know, kind of musician type guy. He's a businessman. And he sat down, and JD had kind of convinced him, like, everyone's talking about these guys, they're the next big thing. So he'd heard a lot about us. And he was like, cool, what do you want? And I was like, well, listen, Jonathan, we don't get out of bed for less than 70K. And Bill looked to me like he was going to kill me right there. He was like, we are broke. We do not have money. Oh, and you're telling this guy that we don't get out of bed for 70K? What's wrong with you? And I don't know why I chose 70K. We could have said more. You know, I don't know what, I was like, I felt the vibe was that they wanted us, and he was going to do anything to kind of get us to be a part of his company. And so he kind of got up, laughed, got up, walked out. And then Bill was like furious at me. JD went after him. Bill was like, you've just ruined this. He was angry. And then JD came back and was like, yeah, he said, yeah. We were like, what?
But he said a piece?
What? Huh?
A piece.
Yeah, that was the advance for us. It was 70K each. So,
wow.
So obviously we didn't get 70K put in our banks. We made sure they gave it to us in kind of like monthly installments. But so we went from having nothing to all of a sudden having like 5K in the bank every month. And you know, it was nice. All of a sudden, you know, we didn't buy anything crazy. We did go out a lot. We had South African friends who came into London. We had some Scottish friends who came down and be a part of our crew. So we did go out and party a lot. We had a great time, but we never spent anything. We never bought anything extravagant. All of our kind of the how we blew like $1 million in a year eventually, when it came down to it, was just having the greatest time of our lives.
I bet.
We'd buy the bar out sometimes at places. We tour and we just have the craziest days, craziest, honest times, you know.
I bet.
And that cost money. We would get we had like an account at Addison Lee, and we'd get taxis everywhere. We wouldn't go on the tube anymore. We're like, why go on the tube? We can get a taxi everywhere. And eventually at the end of the year, these bills are like huge at the end of the year.
So here's something I want to talk to you about. Recently, there's been especially YouTube, self-publishing, and et cetera, Spotify. There's so many different ways for people to make it without doing a record label. In fact, there's a guy named Tom McDonald. Are you familiar with him?
Mm-hmm.
Amazing, incredible rapper, but he does like all of his own stuff. So do you think that's do you think that allows people to be more true to themselves and their music? Because from what I've heard, show business is mostly business. This is what I've heard from people on the inside. And there's a lot of like, the companies do a lot of pimping, as you're talking about Eminem with his hair. Or I was watching a documentary about, you know, the band Aha from Norway?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, they were doing like this development with them, and it wound up taking, or like that song, Take On Me, that wound up taking like 2 years, because they wind up doing so many different takes and different videos, and they were developing them, and they weren't just letting them go out and do the kind of music they wanted to make. So
yeah,
do you believe that that's better, like that's the best way for younger artists to do, is you just do the stuff themselves?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what your ambitions are, but if you like, the best way to do it now is to, one, become incredibly amazing at what you do. Obviously do loads of gigs, and if you can't do gigs, then go online, open up a Twitch channel, start streaming, build your audience, find their ways to build the audience, and don't go anywhere near any kind of company, or even any kind of management or anything like that. Don't go anywhere near the industry until you've put 2 or 3 years from the point where you are amazing. So it can take you 5 years to get amazing, but 2 or 3 years in of like uploading things out, playing live all the time on Twitch, like building it till you have a really big audience, and then go out and tour and enjoy the road and become a real musician, and to the point where you're selling decent amounts of merch, and so that when any artist goes to a label, as a business merger, if you are not turning over money, if you're not selling to your fans, if you don't have a big enough fan base, then if they want to sign you, then basically they want to rip you off. They're basically just signing you to hold you in case something happens, but they don't have any genuine intentions of making you a star or anything. So the way to do it is to kind of plan for the long game of just being a great musician, build fan base, and then once you've got like 1,000 fans that are buying all the time, or once you've got like a really big Twitch community or a big Facebook page community, until you've got something big that you can walk into a label and go, this is how many CDs I sell a year, this is how many tours I do, this is what I get paid, this is how much I made last year, and I would like this type of deal, where you say, I would like you to give me 20 grand and I'll give you 40% of the record, or, you know what I mean? When you're in that position to do real business, until that point, just stay away from it, because there's nothing good that's going to come from the industry side of things early on, you know.
And just real quick, even bands like NSYNC and TLC, they wind up signing some records where they literally worked for years and didn't make virtually anything. Just basically
made no money.
Yeah,
made no money. TLC won 2 Grammys and they were bankrupt that day.
Yeah,
you know.
Thank you for that. Gray?
I want to just go back in time a little bit and focus on the relationship with your parents and your family around the time, because obviously you spent a lot of time in London, and you're staying in character, you're avoiding calls, as you said in the documentary, from your mum. So can you tell us a little bit about that period and how it affected your relationship with your family?
Yeah, that was genuinely the hardest stuff, because I like really love my parents, and I have a really good relationship with my mom, where it's a kind of like best friend type relationship. We talk about anything, you know. So not being able to talk to them and having to stay in character, that was a big part of the kind of identity crisis that I went through, was not having that touch base, you know. And I felt like anytime I would be around people from Scotland, my accent would start to go. So there was too much fear of like this falling apart, you know. And that's where the plan that I had started to kind of go out the window, and it was like, don't get caught, you know, whatever you do, don't get caught. And so the, you know, fear takes over, you know. We're making loads of good money, you know, we could just turn around and go, look, this is the thing, we probably had a big enough kind of burst that we could get from the media to kind of maybe even kickstart something ourselves. But it was just so much fear of like of not kind of winning, or not kind of proving ourselves, and not kind of like getting the goal. And then, you know, kind of like you keep thinking like, well, when I've achieved this, I know that I had such a great family, they'll stick by me through anything. But the weight of what you don't realize, when I kind of, and it sounds kind of weird, but when I woke up, which is to say that when I stopped being brains, which is to say that when I stopped hearing the American accent in my voice, you know, like when you're talking to yourself and you're walking along the street, sometimes that voice still comes in my head as American. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know, what's going on here? And it took ages out of character for people to kind of be like, hey, dude, you're still doing it. You're going back. I was like, oh, you know, like,
oh my God.
Really, but from the day that I kind of, you know, I had an overdose and I woke up in hospital and my sister was there, I couldn't hear Brains that day. When I woke up in hospital after the overdose, Brains was gone for a moment.
Oh my God.
I was able just to talk to my sister, and she was able to put down like, look, you know, Dad's not been well, you know, like Mom's, you know, out of her mind with worry. Like, look at what you're doing to everyone. Like, stop this now, you know. And it was a well-needed kind of like, you know, kind of shock to the chest of like,
wow,
stop, you've taken this too far. Like, everyone's worried.
Wow.
The family is.
So they knew. Your mum and dad knew, I take it.
They knew to a point. They didn't know what we were actually going down for. They kind of didn't understand. Like, if you're so talented, what's your home accent got to do with it? They didn't understand that. But once they started seeing me on TV, and my sister was like, "Oh, turn on to MTV," you know, and they're like, "But before you do it, just he's a little bit different," you know. And them like, my mom watching and kind of going, "Who's this guy?" Because I've never been a kind of rude kid. I wouldn't be someone who would talk over someone. I'd always have like respect for kind of elders and stuff like that. So to see me kind of being like on TV, like making fun of Dave Barry's mom in a battle ram, you know, she was just like, what is this, you know? So it was very difficult, but after a while we managed to kind of like, they're just really, really, I went home for a while and they took care of me and they were really, really good. There was kind of like, you know, withdrawals and stuff I had to go through not from hardcore drugs. I never did hardcore drugs, but I was taking so many different types of medications, which once were prescribed to me and stuff that I would, because I knew I was conscious of sweating. So I would take certain types of medications to stop me sweating. I would take horse tranquilizers for this thing and uppers for this, downers for that. So I was so screwed with the kind of chemistry that the things I was doing in my body with taking all these meds and manipulating the chemistry to kind of get in character or to, you know, get out of character, you know, and that was the stuff that I needed help. I needed help from family to get away from that. And I have a great best friend, Oscar Bravo, who was in the group at the start. And I have a great sister and I have another great sister and a great family. So thanks to them, I was able to come out of the kind of identity crisis, and it became an identity crisis. At one point, I was gone. I was completely, I believed I was Brains McLeod. I'd started to stop remembering my history because a lot of it was really hard. So I kind of started to believe that Brains history was real, you know, and that's a tough thing to come out of eventually.
Yeah, actually, this is something I wanted to talk to you about because one of my favorite movies, probably top 3, is called Memento, and it's about a guy who has short-term memory loss, and he actually goes through quite a bit of trouble to deceive himself. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I saw a lot of that, like the self-deception, and I just actually released my book this last week. It's called American Abroad, and it's about me being Mexican. I'm Mexican, trying to be Mexican, American, trying to assimilate, dyeing my hair, dyeing my goatee, dyeing my eyebrows. And then I come to South Korea and I'm trying to fit in South Korea and I don't really fit in here as well. So I was going through all of these identity crises. There's that. But then everybody, like, you may be the most extreme version I've ever heard of my life of people who lie to themselves. Like literally that might be the most extreme, but everybody does this to us. Everybody does this to themselves. They remember one little fact when they retell a story, or they'll forget one little thing, et cetera, et cetera. And it's amazing hearing your evolution to overcome that and how it shaped you now. I do want to ask you this because I'm a Christian, Adam is an atheist, and we like to talk about things so we could see from different perspectives, which is why we have different ideas in here. And so do you have any spiritual beliefs or a belief in God, or what about your family?
Yeah, I mean, I was raised, you know, my parents were quite religious, and not of any one type of religion, but I was never on board with organized religion. I believe in religious moments, and I believe in spirituality is absolutely important. I have a really kind of bizarre relationship with sleep. I lucid dream a lot. I get a lot of my ideas in sleep, and some of the things that you can do in lucid dreaming are beyond religious. Like they are where you can wake your mind up in sleep mode, and then you can build worlds. And so if you think about trying to tell someone about what I did in my sleep last night, sometimes it's good, and then sometimes it falls into the most hideous night terrors you can ever imagine. So 1 minute you're in absolute pure beautiful places with the people who are who are passed on, and so you know, you're in a euphoric place, or you're in hellish nightmares. And sometimes when I wake up from the euphoria, this life is hard to be in because it doesn't equate to that. It's way better being there. And so when you have that type of relationship with your dreams, you start to kind of not allow things to be too rigid, you know, for either I don't believe in this, or I do believe in this. I just rather be a bit like water and just, you know, take everything as it comes. If the things the problems I have are organized, like making a business out of religion, I find is not great. It's a bit kind of deceiving. But the ability to believe in something is a strong thing, and I think it's an important thing for, you know, people use religious models to conquer addiction. People use religious models to get themselves out of depression, to find happiness, you know. So I do fully believe in the idea of the word religion and believing in something bigger than yourself. I just don't like being honed into any one thing or anyone's right. Anyone trying to tell me that, oh, our religion's right. Our religion is like, right. I don't play that game.
And you know, it's interesting. You mentioned that you lucid dreamed seeing Billy, meeting him. I thought that was crazy. That
before we met, I'd seen him. Yeah,
you told me, and something else happened. Maybe like a dream or a show or something. You said you saw it like exactly in your dream, but maybe that's kind of like the law of attraction. I do want to talk something really briefly about myself, because my parents were ministers, and we adopted a lot of kids into our home. And so one of these guys, his name was Robert, and he was like, I was like really shy. Ministers' kids couldn't talk to girls, whatever. And this guy was like a ladies' boy. He had all the charisma in the world, and I used to envy him. And of course, he was envying me for having a family and all that stuff. But whenever you were talking about Billy and about like trying to emulate him, and you're like, when I met him, he's like what I want to be. Where I have this, I had to like be like reserved, and he had like absolutely zero inhibitions behind him. So that was something I related to you. One, I had also digested 150 sleeping pills whenever I was in college. I was going through a lot of depression, anxiety, insomnia. I totally understand the insomnia thing, because that's something that I suffered with for many, many years. It used to take me sometimes 4 hours to fall asleep, like almost every night. Then it got down to like 2, then to like 1 hour. Now I can fall asleep in 30 minutes. So, but I do want to say this. I used to rap actually, but not even probably 1/10 of you. But I went through a stage where it was the partying, it was the prostitutes, it was the, you know, just a total unbelievably high flying lifestyle. Like you travel around the world, going to different countries, doing drugs in Thailand. You know, being American, being American is naturally, you know, there's a lot of tension I got while overseas. So I eventually did wind up coming back to Jesus Christ, and it's totally changed my life. It saved me. It's made me a better person. But I think seeing your story, it's so powerful. I think on so many different levels. There's so many different levels. But you had talked about the self-sabotage, and is that something like that do you struggle with that at all? Like a negative self-image or self-sabotage? Because I did that so much. I totally believe that I was not worthy of being happy. So is that something you struggle with now, or have you come to terms with that, the underlying reasons?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I struggle with. I mean, now I have a lot of confidence, and I think like the one thing about my story is that it really is the story of confidence, and confidence is the ability. I measure confidence by the ability to turn an idea into a positive action. So, because it's easy to turn things into a negative action, like just get angry, you know. But to be able to turn an idea into a positive action, into like a product, or into like something that's inspires someone, that's what I then kind of build my confidence on. So I have a lot of confidence to the point where if someone says, I want this, I need this, how do I do this? I'm like, oh, well, you know, and I can help them out. But I still have like, and most people should, it's a mechanism that's actually like really good. When I'm doing a mix for someone, or if I'm making a track for someone, or if I'm writing someone, the first part of the process is to think to myself, oh, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. And then I start doing it. I'm going to do it anyway. So then I start doing it. And then I blow my mind away. I'm like, oh my God. I'm just sitting alone in a studio going, oh, I'm so good. You know?
You just have chills on me.
And I feel great then. But then as soon as I start the next project, oh, I'm so not good. How did I do the last one? You know, and it's constant. It never goes away. But if I ever started a project and was like, so good, I think the stuff I would do would be crap. I don't think I would have the incentive to make it special, because a lot of the time I work on something, I'm scared that it's not going to be good enough. And that's the driving force to prove myself wrong, that prove that it is good enough. And so that's why I think there's a desire in me to always get better at everything I do. Not in a negative, not in a kind of stressful way. Now, it used to be a stressful way. It's like, oh, I need to get better by tomorrow afternoon, and then be like, that's stressful. But if you just like, no, I'm just going to take this journey. I'm just going to become a better writer. I'm going to just become better at something.
Yeah.
And I want hard things. I don't want anything easy. I want hard projects. And in fact, when someone gives you something and they're like, oh, make me they pay me to make like a hip hop beat for this artist. That's just too easy for me now. Like I don't take those projects on. If someone says we want a beat that's got, 3% of it is reggae, 1% of it's trap, but 20% of it's like EDM, then I'm like, this is cool because it's hard. It's like difficult now. Like now I have to go beyond myself to figure out the solution,
So the word con man, when people use it, it actually, do you know what the con stands for? Confidence, right? And that's what it is. That's why people like the guy who played Leonardo DiCaprio, who fooled all those people that he was a doctor and a pilot and all this stuff. He laundered all that money. It's because he legitimately was able to play that role. So man, I think you pretty much do anything you put your mind to. I think you might be one of the most unique individuals I think I've ever met.
Brains, what are you doing at the moment? I've seen that you've got quite a bit of music on Spotify. All the old albums, Silibil and Brains are on there. I've had a great listen. Play With Myself, what a track. Loved that. Fantastic. Really funny, great music. What are you up to at the minute?
So I'm working on music-wise, I'm working on the 11th album, my 11th studio album, which is pretty good. It's called Nightmares, and it's not like scary, but it's kind of sometimes it's about kind of like the nightmare is like being awake rather than being sleeping. So it's a very cool conceptual album that mixes EDM and kind of like really cool like new dance sounds with hip hop and rap. So I'm really stoked by that. It's going to be, everything I want to do now is I want it to kind of sound a bit different, but still in an entertaining way, And other than that, I'm working on producing other people's stuff. I'm working on some remix stuff for my girlfriend, and she's got some great stuff coming out. And then when I'm not doing that, I'm working on the film of our story. So, and that's a big project. So that takes quite a lot of time. So there's a lot of screenwriting that I'm doing. And I'm also writing some other TV series and films. So so it's pretty much full go. And if I'm not doing that, then I kind of just find other creative projects that I love. I'm kind of just kind of in and out of a lot of different things, but writing stories, books, films, TV. While I'm kind of finishing off albums.
Can you tell us really quickly about your book? Because I would like to give away 3 copies of that book.
Yeah, so the book, it was initially called California Scheming. There's also versions of it in different languages. You can get like in Germany and Austria, you can get like the version there. I think it's called Fake there. I never came up with that title. I think that's just Random House did in that country. Then there's a version of it called Straight Out Scotland. The book's out there, and it should be available everywhere, but it's one of those things. It's like, once a book's released, like in certain territories, it like blows up, and more copies are available over here, or like and in the UK, when I type in Amazon, I just see that you can get hard copy, or you can buy the Kindle on Amazon, but I'm not sure what that's like in other countries. So
we would like to give away 3 copies of that. If you want to win a copy, I guess hashtag California Scheming or straight out. Actually, just hashtag either of those, because we'll pick 3 winners out of there. And then what about I guess we'll give away 3 copies of the movie as well. Can you tell us about the movie real quick, the documentary? Yeah,
the documentary, I think you can buy copies of the DVD of the documentary online, or you can get it on Amazon and stuff as well. It's right now, if you're in the UK or Europe, that you can get it on the the BBC iPlayer because it got played again recently on BBC. So it's on there for 11 months. So you can, if you have a BBC account, you can watch it free.
Wow.
So yeah, so you can watch, you can either watch it online or you can buy copies of it. So yeah, it's and then the film will be, we're hoping that it's going to be maybe by the end of next year. We should have that in the can.
Yeah. What about any social media?
My social media, I mean, I've got Twitter, but I did a thing where I kind of stepped a bit back from social media. I use the Facebook Messenger, so people can contact me at Brains McLeod or Gavin Bain or Silibil and Brains. People can just reach out on the Messenger on Facebook and contact me there. I use it really only for that. I don't really go on anymore to Facebook and post and stuff like that. Really, I just I thought from my own mental health, staying away from social media was better. I've got an Instagram, but I don't really use it. I just kind of like every now and then when there's a product, if I'm releasing something, I'll put some stuff out. But I think it's very much the stories now at the point where it's in the kind of the stratosphere of stories, and it's got such a big name out there that kind of people find it and are constantly finding it, and they come reach out to me. And I think that's a really good relationship. I'm not kind of anymore in the situation where I kind of have to do the things that unfortunately like young artists starting out have to do, where they have to kind of push their social media. Like I'm on Twitter all day, or I'm on Facebook all day, or I'm on Instagram all day, and you end up just losing your life, you know. Where thankfully I'm at the point where people just reach out to me and say hey, and it's like, oh hey, cool, you know. So it's a nice thing. Also, we're working on a podcast that tells the story in a kind of like TV show format over like 12 episodes. So not sure yet when that will be ready, but that will be coming down the line as well. So that will
be very interesting, because there is literally, I mean, there's so many other stuff I have written down here that we're not going to be able to get to, but it's layered on so many different levels. Literally, it's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. So much to try to unpack. And I definitely thank you for this bit that you were able to talk to us. We really appreciate your time. I think this really, for so many different levels, why I think this is so important, that this story, as I told you about with Adam and I, we have some very different views on things. But one thing that we do like to do is we like to get together and have conversations and be respectful. And we talk to people from a variety of backgrounds. And I think that's one of the things, like whenever you're talking about the trauma that you've gone through, I didn't even get to that, because I really wanted to try to unpack how the physical attack that you had wind up influencing your psychology, and how that maybe played into your character. But again, there's too much to uncover. But whenever we don't address things, whenever we don't start have conversations, and whenever we kind of just brush things aside, as you were talking about, brushing things aside, not dealing with them. For me, that's what I did. I went all over the world thinking, oh, I could go to this country and I could be happy there. And I'd get to the country, I was just as miserable as I was there, as I was back in my home. And so I was constantly lying to myself, constantly telling myself that it was the girl that I was with. It wasn't me. It was the job that I was with. It was always something. There was always somewhere else to point blame. And one of the chapters of my book that I'm releasing, American Abroad, it's called. But it's from a song, and maybe I'll include the song right here. But it says, "So the faces of our enemies, they change, but not the names. Those stay the same." And so for me, that's what it was. It was finding, it was finding always different excuses, always different. It was this person, that person. And it wasn't until I started to look inward to where I really started to get healing and comfort and stuff. So we're going to make your social medias available. I do want to say this last thing before we let you go. If you could close out and whatever you like to say, any last thoughts, but in an American accent, in a California accent. You think you can pull it off?
I'll try.
All right.
I would say the thing with losing yourself and chasing a character is that it's too hard to actually vocalize the words I'm saying. So because it's getting caught up in how bad that sounds. But But I would say like
I don't want to
there's a
trigger any PTS on you. PTSD on you.
yeah, start becoming brains just smashed like that. But there's a part of finding yourself in running away, and that's something that a lot of people don't quite understand with like and kind of like hiding from something that's traumatic. There is a part in some way of finding yourself along a journey that is running away. If you understand at some point along the journey that you are running away. If you never understand that you're running, then you will never find yourself, you know? So I would say like every single person that lives on this planet right now is taking the hero's journey, or there's an opportunity to take the hero's journey. And the hero's journey starts out as someone who wants something or has had something happen to them, who doesn't have it, and they hear a call to action and they get told you either can do it or you can't do it, or there's something over here needs you over there to go and do something, go and chase who it is you're scared to be, go out there, right? And then so they take it, and that will always take you into the second act, the middle part of your story, which is where you are going to try hard to be something that maybe you're not. You're going to try even be something you are, but the ego is going to screw you over. And that's going to take you to a midpoint where you're going to do something and it's going to take you past the point of no return. And now in the second part of the second act, you are going to have to confront who you really are, what you're really running away for. So in the third act of any great story, you're going to have to face your demons. That is the part where you have to face the monster that has been built inside you. And that monster is going to be the negativity, the fear, the trauma, seeing your parents fight as a kid, or being battered yourself, or whatever it is, that over time becomes a hideous monster. And the only way that you come out of your story, at whatever age you come out, is when you don't have to defeat the monster, but you have to try and defeat the monster. And that takes unbelievable amounts of inner reflection, meditation, looking inward self, look at your real self, asking yourself, who really am I? Who really am I? Not what do I want, not how much money do I want, but who am I? And when you understand that, then what I want starts to easily fall into place. So that's why I would say to people, if you have creative outlets, if you have something in your life that you want to achieve, or that you really, really love, those things can help give yourself therapy as well. So for me, I was just super lucky to have a good family, to be able to develop and nurture talent and use creativity in a way to deal with what I had gone through. So if I would say to anyone, find your talent, go out there, chase it, chase after whatever crazy thing you think it is that you want. But along that journey, find the demon that's holding you back. Try and conquer the demon, try to become honest with yourself, and then you should kind of come out the other side the hero, hopefully.
Adam? Oh, wow.
That's very powerful stuff.
Wow. Adam, any last thoughts?
Well, I'm blown away by that. That's probably yeah, I'm not stuck for words often, but
yeah,
thanks. That's powerful stuff. That really was powerful. I'd like to thank you for the story. I mean, I was on a submarine in the Navy when this happened, and I lost 6 years of my life. Didn't really follow music, TV, anything. So I didn't know anything about this. My partner, she heard about it. She lived in Spain. She heard about this. Wow. So watching the documentary and coming across something like this, as fascinating as it is, I'm blessed that I actually got to speak to you as well. But really, I want to thank you, because you stood up yourself and you showed people, never take no for an answer, and don't allow people to treat you badly, because ultimately that's what you did. So yeah, thanks a lot, Brains. Fantastic. And I'm going to continue with listen to music as well. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
okay.
Cheers, man.
So I'm looking directly into the camera right here. I'm kind of just at a loss of words right now. It's going to take a lot of reflection on this. When I saw this a couple of months ago, it was like I was like hypnotized, absolutely hypnotized. And as I told you, Searching for Sugar Man, the Rodriguez story, I would have said that was the craziest story I've ever heard, and this one actually dethroned that. So you got to explain things that were a lot deeper than I knew going into this. This was going to be my favorite episode. I had no doubt. I had no doubt about that, but it totally exceeded my expectations. I want to thank you so much. I mean, I really wish. I think that last part, I'm just gonna make a video of that alone. I think that was
I'm gonna play that back.
Yeah, that last little bit that you did there. But my personal favorite is Black Widow. I listen to that every day on my way to work. Brilliant. And I'll tell you this, is that literally you on the paparazzi beat where you made the exhibit? That's you?
Oh yeah, Raptor exhibits beat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Adam, you got to listen to that, because that is literally one of the top 10 verses I have ever heard. And I've been listening to rap for 30 years. I will put that in the top 10.
What's that, Black Widow?
No, not Black Widow. Black Widow is amazing, but it's called Paparazzi. It's amazing.
Paparazzi,
so,
okay.
Yeah, that being said, I want to thank you for joining us today at RHE Podcast. It's been a very amazing episode, and you can check us out at www.rhepodcast.com. Check us out at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, just about everywhere you can find somewhere to listen to a podcast. You can find us. And so you can also email us at rhepodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to come on as a guest, we aren't always just looking for stars. We're looking for your average Joe Blow to have conversations with respectfully. Doesn't matter if we agree or disagree on topics. We're just here to be respectful, empathy, try to see things from others' perspective. As Brain put it so brilliantly, we are all on a hero's journey. Each and every one of us and we're on different stages. So the more we can help each other, I think it's all the better. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you back again. Goodbye.